Hey, quick question. Have you ever opened your heating bill in February and just stared at it? Like, this can't be right. Or walked into a grocery store and seen a single head of lettuce going for $7? You probably blamed inflation, maybe greedy corporations, maybe the government. And honestly, sometimes those are valid answers. But sometimes, and this is the part nobody talks about, the real culprit isn't even on this planet's surface. It's 30 miles above the North Pole. There's a weather event so powerful it can freeze entire economies, wipe out billions of dollars in crops overnight, and quietly drain your bank account, all within a matter of days. And most people have never even heard of it. It's called a Polar Vortex Split. Today, we're going to break down exactly what it is, why scientists call it an atmospheric heart attack, how it sends shockwaves through your energy bills and grocery receipts, and what, if anything, you can actually do about it. Let's get into it. The giant spinny thing above the North Pole. All right, first things first. What even is the polar vortex? Picture a giant spinning bucket, miles and miles wide, sitting right on top of the North Pole, high up in the stratosphere. Inside that bucket is some of the coldest air on Earth. We're talking temperatures so brutal they make a Canadian winter feel like a beach vacation. Now, what keeps all that Arctic air locked up there? A powerful wall of winds called the jet stream. Think of it like an invisible electric fence surrounding the bucket. As long as that fence holds, the cold air stays trapped up north where it belongs, and the rest of us down here get a relatively normal winter. The key word there is relatively, because here's where things get interesting. Sometimes massive atmospheric waves, disturbances in the upper atmosphere, hit the vortex with enough force to destabilize it. The spinning slows down, the shape warps, and instead of staying in one piece, the vortex literally fractures, splitting into two, sometimes three, smaller pieces. Scientists call this a sudden stratospheric warming event. The temperature in the stratosphere can spike by 50 degrees Celsius in just a few days. And when that happens, when the bucket breaks, all that freezing Arctic air has nowhere to go but south, not a little south. We're talking Texas, Florida, the Mediterranean, places that were never built to handle that kind of cold. And that's when the financial chaos begins. The energy spike, domino effect. Let's follow the money, starting with your heating bill. The moment a polar vortex split pushes cold air south, temperatures in cities like Dallas, Atlanta, or New York can drop 40 degrees in a single day. Now multiply that across millions of households, all doing the exact same thing at the exact same moment, cranking up their thermostats. That's not just a cold snap, that's a demand shock. Natural gas, the fuel that heats most American homes, operates on a simple supply and demand system. Under normal conditions, the grid can handle it. But when 50 million people simultaneously need heat they didn't plan for, demand explodes overnight. And supply? Supply can't just flip a switch. During the Texas freeze of 2021, triggered by exactly this kind of event, natural gas spot prices didn't just go up. They went up by over 10,000% in some markets, in a matter of hours. Prices that were sitting at $3 per million BTU shot past $300. Some energy traders made millions. Some utility companies went bankrupt, and ordinary Texans got electricity bills for thousands of dollars for a single month. Now you might be thinking, okay, but I have a fixed rate plan. That doesn't affect me. Here's the part they don't put in the brochure. Even on a fixed-rate plan, your utility company absorbed those catastrophic costs somewhere, and they will recover them through infrastructure surcharges, delivery fee adjustments, or just straight-up rate hikes 6 months down the road. You'll pay for it, just slowly, quietly, in a way that's easy to ignore until you add it all up. That's the invisible bill. And most people never connect it back to a weather event that happened in the stratosphere months earlier. The $3 billion grocery receipt. Okay, so your energy bill takes a hit. But what about the grocery store? This is where it gets really interesting and really expensive. When a polar vortex splits, the freezing air doesn't always stop at the northern states. It can push all the way down to Florida, to Mexico, to the agricultural heartlands that produce the food on your table year-round. And crops. Crops cannot negotiate with the weather. A single freeze event, lasting just 48 to 72 hours, can cause catastrophic, irreversible damage to entire harvests. We're talking about wiping out 100% of sweet corn crops, destroying 80% of tomato yields, killing citrus groves that took decades to grow. In dollar terms, a single freeze in a major growing region can cause over $3 billion in agricultural losses. Gone. In days. Now here's the economic chain reaction that follows. Supply disappears, but demand, your demand, my demand, everyone's demand for tomatoes and lettuce and oranges doesn't disappear with it. It stays exactly where it was. So what happens when supply collapses and demand stays flat? Prices explode. And this is the part that really hits home. You're not just paying for a tomato. You're paying for the scarcity caused by a weather event that happened 2,000 miles away from your grocery store. An event you probably didn't even hear about. An event that felt, from your perspective, like corporations just decided to charge more. The supply chain is long, invisible, and incredibly fragile. And a polar vortex split is basically a wrecking ball aimed directly at its most vulnerable points. The stock market, winners and losers. Now, here's something most people never think about. While you're getting hammered at the pump and the grocery store, somebody is making an absolute fortune. In every financial crisis, there are two sides of the trade, and a polar vortex split is no different. The winners. Large natural gas producers, companies like EQT, the biggest gas producer in the US, can see their revenues spike dramatically when spot prices for gas go vertical. When the vortex hits and demand spikes overnight, these companies are suddenly selling the same gas they always had, at 10, 20, sometimes 100 times the normal price. Their stock prices can jump significantly in a matter of days. If you're an investor and you've been watching the weather models, that's a very lucrative trade. The losers. On the other side of that equation are logistics and transportation companies. When roads are iced over and planes are grounded, supply chains don't just slow down, they break. Packages miss delivery windows, perishable goods spoil in transit. Manufacturing plants shut down because components never arrived. In today's economy, most businesses operate on what's called just-in-time inventory, meaning they don't keep weeks of extra stock sitting in a warehouse. They order what they need right when they need it. It's efficient. It's lean, and in a polar vortex event, it's catastrophic. Think about the domino effect. No trucks, no parts delivered, no manufacturing, workers sent home, potential layoffs. All because of a weather event that started in the stratosphere over the Arctic Ocean. This is the hidden cost that never makes the headlines. It shows up weeks later in earnings reports, in unemployment numbers. In that friend who tells you their company had a rough quarter. Can you vortex-proof your life? So what do you actually do with all of this? Here's the truth. You can't stop a polar vortex split. Nobody can, but you can stop being blindsided by one. On energy, talk to your utility provider about budget billing, a program where your annual energy costs are averaged out into equal monthly payments. Instead of getting a $600 bill in February and a $40 bill in July, you pay a predictable amount every single month. It doesn't save you money overall, but it protects you from the shock spikes that can wreck a budget overnight. On investing, here's a signal worth knowing. When you start hearing the phrase stratospheric warming in weather news, that's your early warning. That's the precursor event to a polar vortex split. At that point, pay attention to the Henry Hub natural gas benchmark price. It's the standard pricing point for natural gas in the US, and when a split is incoming, it tends to move fast. You don't have to be a commodity trader to understand the basic pattern. And more broadly, start connecting the dots between weather events and your personal finances. The world is far more interconnected than the average headline suggests. A disruption in the Arctic stratosphere doesn't stay in the Arctic. It travels through energy markets, through supply chains, through grocery store prices, straight into your bank account. A polar vortex split isn't just a weather forecast, it's a financial shockwave, and now you know how to see it coming. The world is more connected than we think. Sometimes the wind in the Arctic is the reason your wallet feels a little lighter come March. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.